Go through the process of designing your new game. Yeah,
Yeah,
this is what
yeah,
we're
I'd love
doing.
to.
We haven't really spoken about this in depth, but yeah. Do you want to give us a bit of a background? We haven't organised this
Yeah,
section at all, have we? This is very
no, this is going to be quite impromptu, but I think the point was so that anyone who's watching along sort of is in the same boat as you. Did you want the links to the documents that I have?
why not?
Um, so that'll be in your DMs shortly. So that's our shared drive. I've made a new folder with the two documents in there. Um, Yeah, so I think I mentioned briefly the other week, but me and my partner in crime, Gemma. We're developing a game called Arvo, the Outback Delivery game. We have created a pitch and submitted that through the Emerging Game Makers Fund, game design, so that we can plan out what the game should look like before we have to start putting a lot of uh, coding and programming and development into it.
So I'm trying to listen while also doing crap. There we go. I'm not the best multitasker. Sorry. Okay. So this is what you've applied for money for this. Yeah. That's what you just
Yeah,
saying.
so
So what should we
um,
look at? These are the documents that you put together, is it?
so one of the documents, the creative pitch deck, was a requirement through the submission, and then the other one is a GDD, so a pretty standard game design document. I think the pitch deck might give the best overview to start with, and then there's
Okay.
more specifics in the GDD.
Okay. Property of Gemma Whiting and Fraser Carpenter, Chronoboros. Cool. Alrighty. So it's very white.
Yeah, yeah, this is not meant to be pretty.
That's all right.
Sorry about that.
Sorry to anyone who has to be watching and is blinded by the.
Yeah, the
Can I change
flashlight.
the back? Can I change the background, or I can only view?
I think you can edit it.
Do you mind if I just change the background while
Yeah,
we're
no,
doing this?
no, go
Just
for it. Yeah,
we just change it to maybe. Is there a good color that might?
probably a grey, I'd imagine, right? Or a dark blue. Although I guess it's all black text, isn't it?
Yeah, you can't
Maybe
get
a
too
light
dark.
grey, just a little bit.
Let's try like. No, let's not do that. Why is this?
Oh, that's only the one.
Oh, normally it gives you the option. Oh, apply. Hang on. Let me. I don't think that's. Let me just a little darker. Little darker. I think that might. I think we can then go and apply. Oh, okay. Well, whatever. We can, we just have to blind everybody. That's all right.
Apologies, that's my bad.
Sorry about that. Okay, so project goals. Here we go. So shall I? I mean, this is your game idea, so I'll let you do the pitch.
Yeah.
Pitch me.
So Arvo is a sort of like an arcade racer delivery game. So the core concept is interacting with NPCs, collecting their packages, using the physics system, putting them into a vehicle, and delivering them to a specified point. In terms of like experience, we're kind of wanting to show appreciation for Australian Outback, and so there's a lot of Australiana and sort of overarching ideas that we want to have, developing narratives from our NPCs to make them more to sort of like the example I was given with the accuser, having a strong character so that you feel more motivated when you're being given objectives and tasks. In terms of design goals, we the core is kind of wanting to have a driving game that is more engaging than vehicles often are outside of racing games. Um, and so to do that, we're looking at a mechanic we call active shift, which essentially is like a gamified version of driving a manual car. So requiring the player to consider their speed, shift gears appropriately, and if they fail to do so, being punished. It stemmed actually from the Gears of War active reload mechanic, where when you press the reload button, you have a small window where you can press it again to reload faster and potentially get a damage boost.
Mm-hmm.
But there's more examples and visuals which should hopefully help with that further through these slides.
Cool. I'm just noticing here. So, like the first sentence of the experience goals. Well, actually, so the primary emotion we want players to feel is appreciation. So this is kind of interesting. Okay. So to foster this feeling, we ask the player to perform extremely important tasks that are delivering personal and precious items for a community, which is unable to do so to do those themselves. Our robot NPCs. Okay. So sounds very much like Death Stranding. I mean, sounds very much like Death Stranding, actually, which is fine. I'm sure it's not going to be like Death Stranding in many ways. Okay. Strengthen the shared connection. Actually, even that one. Sorry, carry on.
Just neither of us had played Death Stranding when we were typing all this out, so it's convergent design, I guess.
That is really interesting, because particularly the strengthening the shared connection, the strands and all that sort of stuff in Death Stranding are all about that, and the creating that what do you call it, the sort of bringing America together sort of thing. Yeah, really interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I think there's a lot I can learn from Death Stranding just in the narrative side, because I think there's a lot of interesting concepts there, but obviously, as we've said even today, I think there's also a lot of hurdles through there. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to picking through that and sort of trying my hand at taking the best bits, I suppose.
And just having something that's not an appalling user interface. I guess the menu system, as long as the menu system is better, I think you're on a winner, personally. Yep. Yeah. Design overview, cool. Do you want to go through this?
Yeah, so I think the really easy way to look at it is the gameplay loop up in the top there. So it's sort of two loops which overlap. Starting with talking to an NPC is how you start a delivery, where you get given some sort of package, a box, you put it into your car, you have to drive. This is what I was thinking about when we're talking about dynamic systems.
Mm-hmm.
Originally, the idea of delivering was on a time frame, because it's such a quick way to add pressure and sort of encourage players to go fast.
Mm-hmm.
But we also wanted part of this game to be about exploring, because we think exploring is part of appreciation. And so we are discussing a dynamic system which will reward player more points based on how fast they go. So there's still a pressure to go fast, but not to deliver it quicker, if that makes sense.
Okay.
And we kind of need that pressure to encourage players to go fast, because that's where you run into, if you crash and all your packages go flying out, that's part of the core gameplay, is that idea of finding that balance and driving the players to develop mechanical skill. So yeah, finishing that loop, you talk to the NPC, which if you have their package, you can finish their delivery, you get those points I was talking about, a dynamic amount based on X, and then using those points to upgrade. This is, I think I was talking about it off stream, the idea of orthogonal design, but we've got quite a bit of design work to do in thinking about how those upgrades work. Yeah. The easiest answer would be, well, you can buy an upgrade that gives you 10% more speed, or gives you 30% bigger tray to hold your stuff. but I think a more interesting approach would be having completely different vehicles, or adding trailers or some sort of cargo strap. Very Death Stranding-y, like upgrades which help you carry more stuff rather than just make you go faster.
Yes. Did you also are you also aware that Death Stranding does actually have time deliveries for special deliveries where you got to deliver
I
pizzas?
I think I did one where I delivered some fish, and
Right.
I was not excited to see that it had a time limit. I remember
Mm.
accepting it and being like, uh, I guess I won't explore. Yeah.
Yes, it has that effect, doesn't it? I think that's a very important lesson to learn. Um, you know, games have design knowledge embedded within them, and we should take notice of that knowledge. And I think what you've just said is um, a really good lesson there. That when we see time limits, I mean, because I'm the same. Our reaction is often like, oh god, yeah, okay, yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
I think maybe the solution to come up with is something that might work quite well. Um,
Yeah.
some
So
of
the other part of this slide is a sort of diagram for that active shift mechanic that I mentioned before.
mm, mm-hmm,
So the general concept is when you get into a vehicle, you accelerate, whether that be with the W key or pushing forwards, and a bar would fill, and it would go through a couple color stages to represent different states that the vehicle's in.
mm-hmm.
And once you reach the red zone, you will no longer be able to accelerate any faster until you switch gears. So that involves letting go of the acceleration, um, essentially going into like a neutral, going into coast, and then using some sort of key blinding to switch from, say, first gear to second gear. And then that changes the graph or the bar, and you then, as the player, have to make a choice when to re-engage the accelerator so that it lands within a certain zone to either get a speed boost or um, to let it ride out till it's safe. And if you fail that, if you re-engage the accelerator at the wrong time, um, potentially having the car like kick or some sort of negative effect which could cause the packages you're trying to deliver to get launched out the back.
Right. Nice. Nice. Cool. Sounds good. So basically, only people born uh, before 2000 will be able to play this game because no,
I'm hoping
because
my
because
hatred for driving manual, I get to share that through this game. That's my goal with the active shift.
I have only ever owned manual cars, and given the choice, I will only ever own manual cars. I'm not interested in these automatic dodge 'em car kind of things. but I know that most cars these days are actually automatic, and even worse, electric cars don't even have bloody gears. Like, what's the story there? Goodness me.
Maybe we can add a cheat mode in here just for you, Chris, where we get rid of the active shift and it's just an automatic.
No, I would hate it. I would hate it. But it's kind of an interesting one, whether you could upgrade to an electric vehicle that didn't have. I don't know whether you could fit that in. Look, it's your game. I don't want to. I don't want to. I don't want to add. My job here is not to sort of question your designs, user design things. So should we go to the next one?
Yes, yeah, for sure.
Okay, so that's design overview, gameplay, active shift drive mechanic. Cool.
Yeah, we can probably breeze through this a little bit faster. This is some of the concept art.
Okay.
It was mentioned earlier that the NPCs will be robots, but yeah, in terms of game design, that's all trying to push across like a friendly, approachable, loving sort of character design so that players feel more invested. And then, yeah, the locations, like I said, a lot of Australiana, so a lot of our history growing up more rurally, to continue to drive those sort of design goals.
Are we talking cozy game vibes? Is that what we're talking about?
In the art style, with a bit more chaos in the gameplay.
Okay, cozy meets chaos. Excellent. I love it.
Yep.
I love it. Technical overview. Yep.
yeah, pretty self-explanatory. What we're familiar with is Unreal 5, and then we'll be learning Blender. Uh, at uni, we learnt Houdini and Maya, but those typically come with a pretty big price tag.
Yes, yes, they
So
do.
we're going to learn Blender for this project. Is our
Hmm.
big thing.
Okay. Aesthetics. So here's your key concept art.
Yeah. So again, just pushing that cozy, um, and a lot of the design stemmed from the idea of road trips, and so golden hour. Um, so capturing that sort of vibe, um, to help push the emotion, um, and create sort of that welcoming environment, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. The vibe.
Um, yeah, I guess that's probably the most relevant in terms of design, giving the players,
Yeah.
creating a space for players to feel welcomed, and then encouraging them and tempting them to drive faster and faster.
I can just see you standing up in front of a team of hardcore programmers saying, "It's the vibe. This is the
Mm,
vibe. Code me this vibe."
yes.
Yeah. Yes, yes. So it's interesting. That's part of what what we're hoping to maybe talk about more. I don't think we'll get there today, but at some stage during this,
Mhm.
because that's one of the challenges, I guess. But shall I go to the next one?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Aesthetics
Sure, sure.
overview. Okay.
Yeah, so more like I said, more concept art for some of our characters, and then our references for where we're drawing from. So keeping things relatively simple, but yeah, like you said, that cozy vibe for the art style.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
So this one here, this example there, is that taken from an existing game?
yeah, so on the left is from Dorfromantic, which
Okay.
is
Not familiar
a
with that one.
puzzle tile game.
Okay.
Um, I think I recently 100%ed it, which took me 120 odd hours. I love
Wow.
that game. It's very good,
Okay.
very
Okay.
cozy, and yeah, a good art style that we want to try and mimic.
Stylized low poly 3D models, flat 2D surfaces and expressions. Okay. And on the right hand side, so NPC concept art. So
Yeah,
can
so we
I
had
can I
some.
can I delve into this? Can I ask you hard questions? Are you okay with that? Like,
Yeah, sure.
so I guess I'm looking at. You did mention before. So this is the. So I guess number one, who are we? Who am I as the player?
Mm. Um, our narrative is still a bit loosey goosey,
Okay.
um,
Okay. No, okay.
which
That's so. At the moment, that's still to be
yeah,
decided.
what we're
Okay.
it's still yeah penciled,
Yeah.
but where we're currently sitting is you would be playing as a human
Hmm.
in a rural Australian area which has been fenced off and quarantined, as a some sort of computer virus has given sentience to a bunch of machines and computers.
Ooh.
Um,
Okay.
and
Ooh.
so
Are we
on
talking? Are we talking AI?
we are talking, yeah, of like a little bit of AI.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, so in on that slide number 4, we have the sketches for a bunch of different
This
sort
one
of
here. Yeah.
nostalgic or familiar um,
Oh, okay.
machines that we interact with. So we've got things like
Ah.
desktop PCs,
Yeah. Fuel
air
pump.
conditioning units, vending machines.
Nice.
Um, and so yeah, we took that concept for the self-serve checkout,
Yeah.
and that's what we've. I say we. That's what Gemma has fleshed out a bit more in detail with some color variants on the slide number 7. So
Oh, so
um,
that's what that means. I'm looking at the card only. Ah, okay. Oh,
but yeah,
that's I
so
like that. I really like that concept. Yeah, I think you'll get a lot of people reacting for that one.
that's
Those,
the hope. Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
but yeah, we figured
nice.
having characters that were endearing and sort of instantly relatable, like this overworked, exhausted self-serve checkout machine, will
Hmm.
help encourage players and strengthen that connection, and then sort of pull them through um, into the gameplay.
I think if you can somehow build into it that when you go and you deliver your package and then you can't exit because the AI of the supermarket thinks that you have stolen something, I think you need to include that. Which happens. Just goodness me, that's
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah, and then it shows you the footage of you apparently stealing something. You're like, I was just checking
yeah.
my phone. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You've had it as well. Yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's goodness me. It's great. It's just brilliant. Yeah. Look, I like the concept. Yeah, cool. So you got accessibility overview. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think at this stage, I mean, I think it's really important to be aware of accessibility and sort of the goals you want to hit early on. Um, this stage is going from pitch to prototype or sort of vertical slice. So we want to be aware of the things we want to add and make sure we're not going to throw up any hurdles, which will be a problem if development continues from there. So that's the summary for that.
Nice. And I'm kind of assuming you probably had to do this being a government grant. Is that correct?
Yeah, definitely. Which I think was nice to see.
Yep. Yep. Inspiration and references. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, so again, this slide is again mostly for the art style, so hopefully that sort of combination with the concept art you've seen, you can get a good sense of that. I think we've been over that pretty well.
Yeah, cool.
And then, yeah, unfortunately the GIFs, we couldn't have the GIFs in the slides document, which is a shame, but anyone who's familiar with like the Gears of War Active Reload, that was a huge inspiration for Active Shift. And then also web fishing blew up last year. It's a very simple little co-op fishing game, but I really liked the mini game they had. So you control your character in the 3D environment. You walk up to the water, you hold the mouse to cast, it lands, and then when you get a fish, you see this little graphic pop up, and depending on the fish, it'll have a random number of sort of barriers. And so you hold the mouse to reach a barrier. Once you reach it, you have to click the number of times that it shows on there to break through it. And then you catch the fish if you manage to get through it before you run out of time. And what I really liked about this is it gave that feeling of fishing when you catch something on the line, and that sort of excitement, but also the when you've got it on the line, you know if you mess around for too long, it's gonna break and it's gonna you're gonna lose the fish. But then also you can't pull too hard because you put stress on it, and so web fishing I feels captures the essence of it, that idea, the excitement of catching a fish and then having to quickly reel it in, but in a way that is really intuitive and quite simple. It's purely just through the mouse. You just hold the mouse. When you get to a barrier, you have to click the right number of times, and then you go to the next one, and then you get the fish. So Active Shift sort of stems from a similar idea where when I'm driving the manual, I really enjoy getting a really clean gear shift when you're accelerating, you push the clutch in, you coast just for a second while you shift, and then coming back out with the right revs, you get it really satisfying. There's no jolt. It's really smooth, and it feels like you nailed it. So that's what Active Shift is trying to replicate, but in a more simplified gameplay, sort of relevant to the tools that we use to play games.
Interesting. Okay. So the gameplay is kind of, is it right saying in a sense, an important element of the gameplay or the player feedback is based on that web fishing?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Very much so.
Okay. I would definitely recommend keeping that center of mind, because it's amazing how often you kind of start with these sort of things, and this is the sort of focus of what I'm doing, and then you sort of get down the track and you forget sometimes you forget that actually that's my reference. So I'd recommend write that down somewhere. Make sure that put it somewhere you can see very easily. Because if you spend say 12 months, 18 months working on this, you may just forget that because you're so busy doing other stuff.
Yeah,
Uh,
I felt that before. Definitely,
yeah,
it's. I've definitely had those moments where, yeah, you flip back through a notebook or add old inspiration. You're like, oh, I spent X number of hours trying to solve this problem. The
mm,
solution I ended up coming up with doesn't fit. And, you look at that reference, and you're like, oh,
yeah,
I
yeah.
could have just done what they did, or there's
Hmm.
a better idea here that I didn't think of because I lost that. I've had that before, so no, I think
Mm.
that's really good advice.
Yeah, yeah. It's amazing how often we just, particularly when you're busy and your mind is full, you just yeah, it's so easy to forget important, really important things. Cool. So look, sounds really. So I think the core of the idea is really good. Obviously, getting that gear shift right, I think that's going to be a really interesting challenge.
Yep.
So when you're talking
Yeah.
about up here, so is it worth looking at this as well?
I think I've kind of explained a lot of the. I think if we'd gone through that, it would have had answers to the questions that I've already explained. So,
Right, right. So we don't really need to do that.
uh,
So what we're planning to do is to sort of, I guess, go through another stage in the sort of design, and using, I guess, a method that I've put together. Let me just find it here. Do I have it here? And that is, yeah, a particular sort of approach to design. I don't think we'll necessarily have time. Uh, I think it might be worth maybe starting next week if that's all right with you.
yeah.
But essentially, so the idea will be to sort of follow this thing. So, and some of this you've got answers to. Some of it you don't, but that's fine. That's the whole kind of idea. And also representing it in this sort of way as well can be quite interesting. So, number one, looking at the player experience. So focusing number one on that player experience, which I think you do, which is really good, but also sort of going into things like and sort of elaborating sometimes on this, like emotion, mental state, things like meaningfulness. Is there social interaction in there at all? Maybe not. And also things like time and space as well. So sort of going in and elaborating on those, and then also thinking about, and I think this is the point where some of the questions you haven't asked will probably come up. So when you start talking about the relationship between the player and the avatar, um, there was and we were talking about the story there as well. So this kind of includes those story elements, as well as functional elements as well. And I think there was quite a lot that I didn't hear about that. Does that sound reasonable?
Yes. Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. So then there's also, and look, the thing to keep in mind as well, the important thing from a conceptual point of view, the player experiences the world through the avatar. So this relationship, this is why this is first. This relationship, all everything that the player does in the game is mediated through the avatar itself. So all the limitations that are within the avatar, the relationship, the emotional, psychological relationship with the avatar, the the sort of elements of agency, etc., that you're getting is all filtered through the avatar itself. So that's a really important relationship there. Because then there's also, you've got the relationship with the game world again, and then finally game characters. So game characters will include in your game kind of the NPCs and things like that. So that's kind of the first thing. I think we'll maybe do that, start on that next week. Hopefully we'll be able to get through the whole thing. I think it will take a bit of time. And then we can sort of drill down on each of those as well. So you've got some of the stuff, so say for the avatar, some of the stuff you've obviously got there, some of the diagrams and what have you, but potentially going down further and again, sort of in a bit of a hierarchical fashion, addressing each of these. And what I find going through this process, as you get down deeper, there's more and more questions that you have to actually come up with answers for, that when you start out, you don't have to have answers for those. But if you're going to actually go and build the game, so if you're going to give the design to your dev team, for instance, they will need to have those answers. And quite often when we're in the conceptual stage, we're thinking about what we want the player to feel and all this sort of stuff. We don't sort of actually, we're not thinking on those in those sort of terms. So we'll see how we go, but hopefully the experience will be good. You've never done this before, no?
No, and I'm really excited. I even just in the time that we were developing the concept to pitch it, you know, especially being my original concept. I think we talked about it a little while ago, but like there's those gray areas where it's almost like a dream, where it's like you can get from one point to another, but it's sort of fuzzy how you do it, and that's okay in a concept phase. But
Sure.
like you said, as soon as you want to give it to a dev team and actually start developing it, you need those answers. So it actually, I'm really excited. Like we've had a few of those come up in the concepting phase, but I'm excited for those because I think that's where some of the most interesting game design happens, is when you have to nail those down and start sort of sifting through it. So I'm really excited for that.
And it's good to get to it before you start. It's good to answer as many of those questions as you can. I don't think you can answer all of them, but I think it's really good to answer as many of those questions as possible before you start the development process. If possible. So, that's... then you can actually get there and you can sort of hit the ground running and have a lot of those questions already answered, because it's amazing how you can sort of get to a point and even as a solo dev, you're like, what am I doing? Hang on. Everything just fell apart because there's a question there that I haven't answered and I haven't really thought about. So I have to stop developing and I have to go back to this point. Which, if you've got a dev team, that can be problematic, because if you've got a whole lot of people sitting on their hands waiting for you, number one, you're under pressure as a designer. Hey, where's the answer? Or even worse, your programmers go and just decide that they're gonna make those decisions for you. Maybe it's the right decision. Maybe it's not the decision you would have made. Maybe you end up with something which is quite bizarre, something quite different to what you had in mind. So it's really good to visit all these beforehand. So should be fun.
Yeah. Cool.
Have you started doing anything on this yet? Where are you kind of at? Just so you've shown us the pitch. You've applied for some money. You're not going to hear... When do you hear about that? Maybe 8 weeks or something, is it?
Mid-June should be.
So
I believe.
About 8 weeks.
So in terms of development, it's been kind of on hold. My plan... because I do want to go through a lot of this design stuff before, starting to put time and effort into things.
Yeah.
But you mentioned it briefly earlier, but the gear shifting, the active shift mechanic is going to be really critical to getting things right. So my current plan for the rest of this month is getting a really good understanding of the Chaos vehicle system in Unreal Engine, and wrapping my head around that so that I don't have to do that once
interesting.
Development fully gets going. Right.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. The other thing that I would definitely recommend is to doing a full analysis of your fishing game. But we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that, as we sort of progress. So yeah, cool. Alrighty, looks good. I'm excited. I hope you're excited.
I'm also excited.
It's cool. Like I like the concept. It's not incredibly complicated. I think it's relatively simple. It's definitely doable. The scope is going to be interesting.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, and obviously, look, how much money you got to spend and stuff as well, which gives you runway. Runway is time to work on it. So if you get that money, how long that's going to last you, etc., etc. So there's going to be some interesting questions there. But we'll come back next week and talk about that. Looks like it's going to be cool. It's going to be fun.
Awesome. Great.
Alrighty. Well, I think we're going to wrap it up there. Well, it's 4:30. Ooh, almost exactly on time. 4:30 my time. So yeah, anyone who happens to be watching, I hope you enjoyed it. So this is the sort of important part of developing games, the design part, or the first part. So we'll catch you same time next week, yeah?
Yeah, sounds good.
Alrighty. So thanks everyone. We'll catch up with you next week, same time next week.